everyone, I hope you all enjoyed your weekend. So I'm going to show you the lessons that we'll be working on this week during reading comprehension. We'll be focusing on sequencing. So in your Google Drive tomorrow, all of these passages at 9 a.m. in the morning on Monday will be available for you. So I'm going to show you how to do them, and then throughout the week we'll work on them, and you can work on them on your own as well. So what we're first looking at here is, again, sequencing. So when we sequence, we're putting events in the order that they occur. So we're thinking about what happened first, what happened second, and so on and so forth. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look here at this picture. What do we notice about this picture here? So what I'm seeing is it looks like the car is stuck and they are trying to get it out. Another observation that I can see is that it is snowing or it is winter. Something else that I can see is that they have a shovel, and I can also see that they are wearing winter clothing, so it must be cold outside. Okay, now we're going to move on to our questions here. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger for you. So when we're looking at our questions here, they're saying using the numbers 1 through 5, label the order in which the events most likely occurred. So this is where we're really practicing that sequencing. So we have to think about all of the events that might have happened here in our picture, in what order they would occur. So I'm going to read all of the events first, and then we'll go through and figure out in what order they happen. So this first one here says, they realized that their car was stuck from the snowstorm the night before. So I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking if this happened, that might be towards the end of when it happened because they might not realize at first that their car was stuck. So I'm going to keep on looking. First, they tried to dig out the tires with a shovel. Finally, they got in their car and drove straight to the hospital to visit their friend. So when I see these words first and finally, that kind of helps me figure out the order in which these might happen. Because I know that finally would mean that it happened towards the end, whereas first would mean that it happened like the first thing, or that was what happened first. One day the woman got a phone call that their friend was sick in the hospital. Once they had dug out all the tires, they tried pushing the car out of the driveway. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out what happened first. So I'm thinking here, I know it's definitely not going to be finally. So I'm thinking here, I think what might happen first, although this says first, I think what would have happened was that they got a phone call that their friend was sick at the hospital. So I'm thinking that that might have happened first. Then we have to see what would have happened next. So when thinking about what would have happened next, let's see here. We have they realized their car was stuck from the snowstorm the night before. First, they tried to dig out their tires on the shovel. Finally, they got their car and drove it straight to the hospital. Or once they had dug out their tires, they tried pushing the car out of the driveway. So I think what happened was first they got the phone call, then they went outside and they looked and they realized that their car was stuck from the night before. So then they must have tried to dig the tires out with a shovel. And then I think they probably, once those tires were dug out, because that would happen afterwards, they tried pushing the car out of the driveway, and then they were finally able to get the car out and they drove to visit their friends. So as we can see, we ordered this, and I'm going to reread it to make sure that it makes sense. So I'm going to reread what I said first that happened. One day, the woman got a phone call that their best friend was sick in the hospital. They realized their car was stuck from the snowstorm the night before. First, they tried to dig out the tires with the shovel. Once they had dug out the tires, they tried pushing the car out of the driveway, and finally they got their car and drove straight to the hospital to visit their friend. So it looks like the order that I put these in seems correct because I think that that would be the sequence of the events in which this would happen. Lastly, what we're going to do is we're going to apply it in a text. So I'm going to read this text to you. It says, in the winter, Josh shoveled sidewalks and operated snowplows for a living. During storms, he would put on his warmest sweater, pull on his toastiest socks, and start his day with a cup of coffee. When he was warm and ready to head out for the day, he would put his snow pants on, tuck his socks in his pants, and finally put his boots on. Once his boots were on, he tucked his snow pants into his boots to keep the snow out. Next, he put on his winter coat, then his hat. He pulled his coat's hood over his hat. Finally, Josh put on his gloves. He was geared up and ready for the cold day ahead. So when looking at this passage, there were a lot of things that Josh did to get ready. So we have to go back and carefully read it to figure out in the order in which he did everything. So in the winter, Josh shoveled sidewalks and operated snowplows for a living. So I'm looking here at my pictures and I don't see anything related to that. So I don't think that that's one of our sequences that we're going to have to do. During storms, he would put on his warmest sweater. So let's see here. I'm going to look here and see if I can find his warmest sweater. So I think this one might be it. So I'm going to put that as number 1. Then I'm going to go back up and I'm going to continue reading. Pull on his toastiest socks. So now we've got to look for his socks. Oh, they're right here. So we're going to say that that is what happened second. Then he start his day off with a cup of coffee. So now I've got to find his cup of coffee, which it looks like it's right here. So since the socks were number 2, I'm going to label the coffee as number 3. He would start his day with a cup of coffee. When he was warm and ready to head out for the day, he would put his snow pants on. So now I've got to find his snow pants. Looks like these are here. This would be number 4. Tuck his socks into his pants. So, tucking his socks into his pants. Don't believe we have that one there. And finally, he would then put his boots on. So, we're going to put his boots on next, which would then be number 5. Once his boots were on, he tucked his snow pants into his boots to keep the snow out. So, he tucked his snow pants in there. Then he put on his winter coat. So his winter coat was next. So that would be number 6. Pulled his coat hood over his hat. So his hat would then be next. Then he put his coat over his hat. Finally, he put on his gloves and he was geared up and ready for the cold day ahead. So his gloves are what he put on last. So that is the sequence of events that happen in our story here. And again, if we think about it, think about whenever you're getting changed and you're getting ready for the winter. It would make sense for you to put on your gloves last because you're probably going to have trouble getting your boots and everything else on if you have your gloves on first. So we'll continue working on sequencing this week whenever we meet. And as a reminder, these passages will be available for you tomorrow, May 4th at 9 a.m. on Google. Look forward to seeing you this week, guys.